y'all. It's Brigitte Cutshall with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Allie Hall. She's a visual artist known for her abstract work and nature inspired series. Can you say hi?
Hello. Thank you so much, Bridget, for having me on the show. I'm so excited to be here today.
I am glad that we connected. I love what you're doing, focusing on creativity, because in the past, people, for some reason, they just blow it off, but it is so critical in general. It helps, it's calming, and it's just a release for some people. And I guess my first thought was, I know you do other things, but what captured you to start painting? What was the trigger
Yeah,
for that?
that's a great question. For me, painting is something that I learned early on in childhood, and it wasn't until I met one of my first art mentors. Her name is Mrs. G, where she taught me how to use acrylics, and that became one of my favorite mediums of choice. And acrylic is a really forgiving type of paint that I really love because you can use paper towel, you can wipe it off, you can layer it, you can have a little bit more play with that, and it's forgiving. And so it's one where I have always just resonated with the use of that and continue to build that. But she was the one who inspired me because she'd be like, go and think about a subject you want to go paint and paint it and see what it's like. And she would guide me on maybe the composition. And so I learned at an earlier age, probably around like 10 years old, about composition, scale, different canvases, different color palettes, and continued to go from there. And it's been really inspiring. And I still have some of those paintings to this day that I have stored in like our garage area now, but it's hung up outside in our garage to remind me of that moment too.
I like that, that the teacher, I think teachers see that in some students, and she saw that in you. And now you've got a passion that you're embracing. And I think a lot of adults now are doing that. We're all adults, but you just, to me, got to find that passion, and that helps. And you're doing, my understanding, like the abstract work. What can
I
you explain
am,
that for the listeners? Can you explain
yeah,
to them what that means?
I am a contemporary fine artist, so I love to paint things that fall into the abstract category. But I'm also inspired by nature and realism. So I like to bridge both abstract, which is kind of like something that's more in the form of expression, to realism, something that's super realistic. And when you merge the two together, it creates like a dreamlike experience where things almost look 100% reality, but then you look closer and you see there's blending of colors. And so it's more about painting with your heart, not your eyes. So when you're close to the work, you might see I have less detail. And when you're far away, it might look really photorealistic. But it isn't until you see the work, I think, in person that it creates even a different kind of energy. And that's how I think about original art. I think original art is so unique in that way, too.
Yeah, it also, as you were talking, it evokes emotions for it can, depending on your situation or what day you're looking at, right?
Yeah, it does. And that's where you could go to places like, let's say, I don't know, a store, find a piece of like art that's a print, and it can be beautiful in your place, but it could also be maybe not as moving or grounding in your space when you compare it to something like original
Right.
art. And what some people have shared with me when they've seen my art is they've come around the corner at different art shows and they're like, wow, this brings such a sense of calm. And I don't even know why I'm feeling this way. Or when I look at this piece, I am excited about just the colors, and the colors create happiness for me. And so sometimes there's the moment of color or the way that I have movement in a piece that people have shared, it expresses for them like a feeling or emotion that's coming up. And so I like to see and say that like paintings reverberate back that energy of whatever you might be feeling inside. It's almost like a mirror reflection that we don't often think about. And I think for me as an artist, that's one of the best feelings or greatest joys that I feel when someone connects with a piece in a way that speaks to them. Then I feel like that's success to me. That's the most amazing, beautiful, joyful gift of my creativity, that you can inspire someone in that way.
I like that, and I like the perspective of the nature inspired stuff because that I have. You can tell I have vines behind me. It's not real, but it calms me down, and I like nature. and I like photography, but I think painting, you're actually putting a lot of your soul into it, right? Is that the right word?
Yeah, it's 100% true. And I love to paint anything coastal. So I've built a series over the last few years that are coastal scenes that I've taken photographs of all throughout the coast of California. I grew up in Texas and Florida and California. So I love the ocean. I love being near that body of work, of just the body of like the sea, really, and being grounded in that way. And that's my happy place. For some people, it might be the mountains, but for me, I've always resonated with water. And when I paint, no matter where the location is, the water and the way that it moves is always abstracted. It's not 100% exact to maybe what you're seeing. And I like to paint based off the interpretation after the fact of being there, more of the feeling and invoking that feeling of what I felt when I was there too.
That's cool. And you mentioned you take the photographs and you'll go and paint it later. And then do you do custom stuff for clients?
I do, yeah. I've painted different commissions. So I would say my number one fan's always my mom. She's been one of the biggest supporters of my art. And she was one where she was like, "Can you paint something for this wall?" So she's one of the first people in my life that I've always painted for. But then other people across, like it might just be different colors. And so in earlier in my like painting time, I've painted large scale things. I love to paint large scale, so things that are like 30 by 40 inches or is my favorite canvas size. And it almost looks like a window that you can look through. So
Right.
hard like a nice play on that. But yeah, I've painted all kinds of things. So commissions I love to do because really it's what's unique to other people. And recently at an art show I had in San Francisco, I had a couple come up to me and like, "Hey, we're getting married at Stinson Beach. We'd love for you to paint that scene for us on our wedding day so we can
Oh,
for that." So you just never know. I think that's such a special ask for someone to even consider me to do that too.
I think that is really great. They see value in what you're doing. And that's really what I
Yeah,
think we mentioned before I started recording. Our culture sometimes just has, in the past, has sidetracked creativity, how that is helpful. And I've
yeah.
noticed a good positive trend, people like you embracing it, and you're showing how important it is in our lives.
It is, and it's hard to want to do it too when we have so many other things coming at us, whether it's email, social media, Netflix,
Yeah.
that you can just veg out and not want to do. And I found myself in a similar place where I actually stopped painting for 10 years or more. And part of that was, I think, just not knowing if that's really worth the time, which is maybe sounds crazy coming from a creative person. And I think finding joy and self care around creativity changed my whole life back in 2020 more so actually for me. I went through several surgeries and it was the process of healing and resetting what I value in life and kind of those like moments that really shake you to your core that you really reflect and go back to your roots of what brought so much joy and what brought so much happiness. And yeah, it was an interesting reflection point for me going through that time.
I like that how you're saying, unfortunately, you had to have surgery, but I think that's what this podcast is about too. Things happen to us in life. I used to talk about just cancer, but it's everything. People are dealing with something, and we get knocked down. And you used your creativity to help grow your resilience. That's kind of how I see it. And then
Yeah.
you're helping others. There's so much noise out there. I see that as well. And I think you need some calming stuff, like the art helps drown out the noise.
Yeah, and for those that might be listening who don't necessarily see themselves as creatives, I always love to say you are creative. It may not be in the artistic sense, however you want to define it, but creativity is a form of energy we all have as individuals. And one of my favorite low stakes way to bring creativity into your everyday is even just on a walk. So let's say you take time to go on a walk every day. Could you use your eyes to look around and be more present and ground yourself? And then when you come back, write it down or journal or doodle what you saw and just bring yourself not only to your body, but also to the visual side of what you saw and create a creative moment for you when you're drinking your coffee or waking up or taking time for yourself. And it could be a 5 or 10 minute exercise, but that is a form of creative expression. I think being a little bit more open to experimentation there and trying that can create new neural pathways for you. It can create excitement. It's almost like a dopamine hit in itself. It's something different than just going to the gym every day, too.
That's true. Some people think they have to do hours of creativity every day, and I like it's just keep it simple and could be 5 minutes, could be 15, right? And you're
Yeah.
talking about going for a walk. I'm sorry, I love nature and animals, and if I see a toad or a turtle, I'll stop and I'll say hi to it because I'll make sure I don't step on it. And that's just because I'm in its environment. How's that? If I'm on a in the woods or the trail, but I'm known to be an animal lover anyway. And
Same here.
I would probably talk to a fish, Allie. That's what I would do.
I talk to my cats, it's a good thing. I think nature is beautiful, and we're so lucky to be surrounded by such a beautiful place, too.
And we need to embrace it more. In my I mean, that's what I believe, and I think you do that too. We need to embrace it more. We are here, we are connected to it, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for nature, right? We need to um, use it properly, which is the calm us down in our noisy, I call it a noisy world. But I think with the tech side, that is seems to be, I think more people have become open about their stress from with COVID happening. And I think that was a um, door opener for this conversation.
I agree. Yeah, and it's wonderful that we have more of a movement around mental health and also people being open and being more vulnerable to ask for help or to realize
Yes.
when maybe you don't feel calm in your body or your mind or need more community. And I think that that's a whole shift that we're finally in, where I think for so long in different generations, it wasn't okay to talk about.
Yeah, you're correct. Like my mother became a psychologist. Gosh, I forgot. I don't know how old she was, but she had 3 kids by then. But she did it, I think, because of what she saw being a military spouse. Okay. There's a lot that these people talk about the soldiers, but what about the spouses and things like that?
Yeah,
So that's how my mom took it to help people from that
I love.
direction. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've learned a lot from her too along her journey from doing that.
Oh yeah. I was the middle child, so I was a little I wasn't the wild one. Usually middle children are wilder. But I learned just to appreciate how she handled those situations and yeah, not reacting. But she had to be, she was a woman and who had an accent in the United States. So I just saw how she was. And I definitely, as a woman now, I'm, an adult now,
Mm.
I appreciate that. As a teenager, no, I did not. But, but I think that's normal. But she now thinks it's so cool that her daughter is a good writer. I mean, she was told when I was really young that Bridget needs to write. And but I was also Bridget's good at math. I mentioned that earlier, Mike, but it's just at least she made sure that I had a path to go to college. She helped me with that. But then I had to switch schools, stuff like because before we started talking, I told Allie I was a military brat, and so they moved around a lot. So that kind of in college I wanted some stability. I had quit moving to different schools. And back then, you couldn't transfer your people don't realize that some of your classes to other schools to get credit for because it was just the school systems were different.
Yeah,
And it
definitely.
took me a little bit longer than I expected to get out of college, but I did it. Some people don't want to do that, and that's okay, right? That's why you got to embrace, like you mentioned, creativity is not just about writing or painting. Some people can figure out. I think there's people that do a lot of maintenance or not maintenance, but mechanical stuff. That to me is creative.
Yeah, I agree. It's like anything that you're making, anything that you're taking time to do that can inspire you, that fixes something, like that's a form of creativity. Cooking every day, cooking a really great meal for yourself and being conscientious of what you put in your body, it's a form of creativity. My mom, she was someone who really dabbled in a whole bunch of areas. And so she learned to cook and took a lot of classes, and that became her form of creativity. And she was always excited to learn about different spices or profiles of flavor that you could throw into a dish and expand across, serving 10 to 12 people or inviting friends over. But I think oftentimes we don't think about that because it might just be we're in this
That's I like
food.
that. She was creating a community in a way, inviting people over. I'm the same way. I like my mom is not into cooking, but I became that way, I think, because my mom was probably when I was younger, so busy with school. Like back going to college, I was helping and I learned to experiment. I'm sure your mom did that. You got to experiment too. We didn't, when I grew up, we didn't have Google. And you just had standard cookbooks that you had to look at.
Yeah, she probably has over 100 cookbooks. She
Holy
went
cow! She supported the publishing industry too.
well, yeah, she really loved to learn and she learned all types of cuisines. And so with that it was so inspiring because she taught all three of us, I have two other siblings, how to cook. And so to this day, the way that she cooks is not always to the book or to the recipe. It's maybe from memory, and she's created her own cookbook for all of us. So we have a family cookbook now based off of that, which is really cool.
She's definitely using her creativity, and you
Yes.
pointed out the word, gotta continue learning, because that helps trigger the creativity in you, right? I would think.
Yeah, and you just never know. Like, if you could take it in like 1 month to learn something new and take time to do that, you never know what that can lead to. And it's those small step changes that lead to larger impact and help you really see like where do I feel really inspired? Where do I feel joy in my life? And what do I want to keep doing more of, and what and why is that important to me too? So asking those questions, even journaling and taking those time to ask those questions is a form of creativity as well.
Yes, it is, and I like to, obviously podcasts, but I learn a lot from guests, even though because I am curious. That's me wanting to understand, what else is out there that I'm not aware of, and I mixed, after I'm talking to you, I want to go paint a little bit, but I used to do stenciling. It's kind of
Yeah.
it's similar in a way, but I had a not a diagram. What is it? A little outline to help me. But
Mhm.
my husband said I was good at that. Maybe because maybe I was just leaving him alone. I'm just kidding. But I was always embracing that, and I think what you're doing, we want to encourage other people to. It doesn't have to be art. You can try it. You could try different things, and we don't know what we're good at, right? Unless we
Yeah,
try things out.
it's true. And one of my other favorite low lift investments, if you really want to paint or get started in something but maybe don't know how, is I love to go on Amazon and find a like $15 watercolor kit. And it's something you can travel with. It's
Oh,
lightweight, and I usually bring it with me when I travel or go and hang out with other people. And just a couple weeks ago, I was up in Tahoe visiting my brother and my niece, and I brought the kit with me. And I taught my two and a half-year-old niece how to watercolor. And it
oh,
was fun to compare how she could do that and also paint with my brother who had not done something like that. And he was like, wow, I feel really calm. I feel really peaceful right now. And I don't know why. And I was like, because you took some time to paint. And all we did was, hey, choose a color and just paint that same color down the path of a small piece of paper. And maybe use more water to add a gradient. And it was just that simple exercise of being in stillness, being in creativity, and giving yourself 10 minutes or so to do that. Yeah, I don't know. It was really cool to see the energy shift in both my niece being a little bit calmer and my brother, who's older, who'd be calmer too.
also, you're creating a great emotional memory for them. That's how they'll remember that moment. You and her father, and your niece, and she probably won't remember too much details because of her age. But I think it's a really good thing to do. As you're saying, I used to do chalk work with my niece outside.
Oh, fun.
I'm not perfect, but I would obviously Bridget would write words, but that was something that she liked to do because she remembers the I call it is it right chalk art and
Yeah.
special really thick chalk and that is I just wanted her to embrace it, try to encourage her to find something. Now she didn't continue doing it like me. I'm not a graffiti person, but in a way I know some people hate graffiti, Allie, but I've seen it under bridges. I don't know why. I think it's so cool. And
It is. Yeah, I
it,
agree.
it's very some of it's just words at times and some of it's actual images, which they're using, spray paint, the right word.
Mhm.
Which I have a lot of respect because I know the hard work that you guys are doing. I know what goes into it. And they're embracing none of it's negative or anything. Like on a running trail, there's a part that is paved a little bit, and someone put love yourself. And I'm like, I needed to see that.
Yeah, and that's
Simple things.
yeah, it's amazing just the role as artists in the world. I think we're there to create moments of pause or inspire, and when you see that, you just yeah, you never know what kind of effect your art or creative expression can have on someone's life and how that can impact them too.
And when I saw that, I paused. And I'm like, wow, I had to stop and look at it. And I didn't just keep running past it. It just, like, yeah, I appreciated the ability to still run at my age, right? And it was also a reminder love yourself and slow down too, right? So
100%.
you have to listen to what you're learning, understand that, and in somehow put it into your life, and asking questions and learning, and I don't know, be open to that because change is not going away. It's always been there, and I think it helps you adapt to change.
It does. It does. I agree. I think that change, uncertainty are always inevitable. And the more that you can be comfortable in the discomfort is something that has taken me time to continue to learn and relearn. But with that, it's made my resilience be a lot stronger. And part of my kind of like journey of going through those moments of discomfort, uncomfortable moments came through times of when I went through those surgeries or healing or not being able to walk or whatever it might have been, and the frustration that can come up. But then the form of healing for me was that creative expression again and being able to know that it's okay if you don't feel okay. And it's okay if you're not where you want to be, where you're currently at right now, and physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever's coming up for you too.
I think it also is just like you mentioned several times pausing. It just helps you pause and this be in that moment, take a deep breath, and what you're going to work on. It doesn't have to be a painting, but at least try something. And I like how you mentioned the Amazon thing. How I never knew that existed.
Yeah, yeah. I learned about it recently, like in the last few years, when I was teaching a virtual class. I love to teach creative workshops, and I had someone reach out and they're like, "We'd love to have a creative workshop. Would you be wanting to like teach a watercolor?" And I was like, "Oh, sure. Let me see what's possible," because I was teaching people who were all over the US, and it was through this like online platform. And so when I was doing more research, I was like, "Oh, everyone can access this through Amazon and it's reasonable and you can have it with you longer
That
term."
is
Cool.
that is amazing. So you're doing a workshop online, and everybody, I guess I'm assuming it's live, obviously, and then they're all working on something like
Yeah,
small, not a
yeah.
giant painting or something, but working on something small.
So I taught them how to even start with watercolor, like the different baseline. And I would say acrylic is still my favorite type of paint. Watercolor is one that I love to teach in the beginning though for folks because water is the base and it doesn't have to be perfect. And the ways that I was teaching the class was just how to use the brush, how to make circles. Let's make circles based off colors. And we made giant bubble sheets, is what I call them, like lots of circles, and then experiment and just play. The art of play and being okay to not have something be perfect and not have to follow along to make a specific painting, but just allowing yourself to be a bit more childlike and embrace that creative side that I think is often like, I don't know, under wraps or not, very easily available to as many people, even though we all have that inside.
I like that term, the art of play. That is so critical in our world. We get so I've seen a lot of books out there too about this, the art of this or the art of that, you know what I'm saying? And the art of work, like, oh, that's kind of boring sounding to me. But anyway, the art of play is going to intrigue people more. And
Yeah, yeah.
because, like you said, think back when you were young, what made you happy? What made you joy? And apparently mine was writing stuff with chalk. That's what I did. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful that my parent had that for me. Um, I'm sorry, just blabbing, but it made me think of my oldest son when he was like 3 and his brother was born. He started writing on the walls with, because he
Oh,
wasn't getting 100% attention, right? And so, okay, then I had to go hide the markers, you know what I'm talking about. But
yeah.
I just still think I didn't get spank him or anything. I just thought I was trying so hard not to laugh because he got my attention, right? And so we just had to easily, simply paint over it. But he was like, gosh, I'm not the center of attention. And that's what kids do. I think it's so important to share that with them when they're young. And I probably was doing that kind of stuff with him, but he did it on the wall instead of a piece of paper. You know what I'm saying?
I did it on the couch. It was like a
Yeah,
new white couch, and I used a Sharpie, so
yeah,
I would draw underneath tables. So I think when you're in that childlike state, you're exploring and you're allowing yourself to be more expansive in whatever
all
experimentation.
right.
Like,
I did it when I was 5 when I visited my uncle in France. Yeah, I was like 5, and they had I didn't know this, new wallpaper. Back then, it was 1970-ish. You had wallpaper. And apparently, Bridget thought that was really boring. And so I wrote, I don't know what I did. And I said, it looks better, doesn't it? And then apparently I got spanked because they put a lot of money. I didn't know, but I was just trying to improve but they obviously had markers around that I had access to. And I was just trying, that was
yeah,
that now they laugh about it, but I didn't understand um why he did. But that's hilarious. And I never wrote on the couch, but I wrote on wallpaper.
yeah,
So I liked, maybe it's because of the graffiti that we've seen on things and it was considered normal. But that is so cool. I guess the last question I have for you is, what is 1 or 2 ways or takeaways for people to try to embrace that creativity and fit in the art of play in their life a little
yeah.
bit each day?
I think like one takeaway is like see what's coming up for you and don't be afraid. If it's something that's coming out of fear, to me that's always been an indicator that okay, maybe I want to try it. And then ask yourself why. Like, why am I afraid of doing this? Is it the fear of perfectionism? Is it the fear of failure? Like, okay, well, what are you gonna fail in? So I think it's asking yourself and being more curious about how you want to be more creative or how you want to be a little bit more playful in your life day to day and where that could be coming up for you. And it's that stillness. I always go back to stillness because I think oftentimes stillness is one of the hardest things to bring into our lives. So it's
Yes.
asking questions, being in stillness, and then trying something and not being afraid to try one small step because you just never know where that can take you longer term with, just these actions too.
I like that. It's just to slow it down and made me think too. You got to make time for it, and we're so busy running around. And I think what you're doing is really, really helpful. I understand the work that goes into it, and I agree. People probably just blowing it off for making excuses for some reason rather than just trying a little bit, like you said, every day. I call it experimenting too with your curiosity. This is awesome. So where can people find you and learn more about you, Ali?
Yeah, you can find me at allyhall.art, and that's my website too. So it's just www.allyhall.art, and then my Instagram is allyhall.art as well.
I love this. I really appreciate what you're doing, and you're bringing so much light. You really, I see it as bringing light into the world.
Thank
And
you.
we need the positivity, really, truly need more positivity like this.
I agree, and that's a huge compliment. So thank you, and thank you so much for your time and having me a part of your show today too.
Thank you. And for those that are listening, I'll include the links that she mentioned in the description so you can focus if you're driving, right? Thank you so much, guys.